This is the Louie Tee Network.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie Tee? Welcome to Lockdown Coverage, week number 8 in the National Football League. Denver Broncos at home looking to exact a measure of revenge versus their AFC West counterparts in the San Diego Superchargers. Chargers beating this team just 2 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. This is a big one. If the Chargers are able to win this game, they get back to 500 on the season at 4-4. And more importantly, sweep the season series with the Denver Broncos, which could have some lasting implications down the line. For the Denver Broncos, it's pretty simple. Win this game, go to 6-2, set up a huge showdown on Sunday Night Football at Oakland for first place in the division. So, big game. Don't want to drop 2 to the Chargers and go down 0-2 in the division, having not played Kansas City yet and having not played Oakland yet. If you're Denver, you need to get this one to get back to 500 within the AFC West division. So this is a big, big game for both teams involved. Broncos getting a little healthier. DeMarcus Ware back, and his presence would be felt in this football game. We'll talk about his impact and how he fared in this game a little bit later on. But before I do any of that, welcome to the Louie Tee Network if this is your first time. And if you happen to not be a subscriber, what are you waiting on? Subscribe to the Louie Tee Network for more great content in 2016 and beyond. We're changing the game over here. Want you to be a part of that. Hit that red subscribe button and subscribe to the Louie Tee Network. Also, I'm on Twitter. In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter. You want to know when I'm going live? You want to know when I'm posting a video? You want to just chop it up with your man Louie Tee? Easiest way to do that, follow me on Twitter in the Lab Room. Turn those notifications on, whether you're on the YouTube channel Louie Tee Network or you're on Twitter in the Lab Room. Turn those notifications on so you know exactly when we're starting up a live feed here on Louie Tee Network. Also, I'm on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Go ahead and give me the thumbs up and the like. If you happen to be watching this while you're on Twitter, go ahead and use the hashtag LouieTeeLive to have your comment read at the end of this breakdown. Or if you're watching this as I'm doing this and you're on the actual YouTube live chat discussion, go ahead and use the hashtag LouieTeeLive to have your comment read at the end of this breakdown. So, number of different social media platforms, all right above in the box scrolling across the screen. Don't miss any of them. Like the Facebook page. Follow me on Twitter in the Lab Room for both of them. And, of course, on YouTube, Louie Tee Network. Go ahead and subscribe. So, let's jump into this breakdown of Chargers at Broncos. Likes, dislikes, banana in the tailpipe. This was a pretty good game. I mean, a ton of turnovers. A lot of mistakes by both teams involved. But when it's all said and done, pretty good contest between the two of them. You saw the desperation on the part of both teams in this game and how both of them really wanted this football game. Turned out to be a pretty good showdown when it was all said and done. We start with the likes of the visiting team, that being the San Diego Chargers in this game. So we'll start there. In the first half, things that I liked with the Chargers in this ball game, the response to the Broncos opening drive. Broncos drive it down the field, get a field goal. Chargers get the football for the first time, down 3-0, and they take the football, move it right down the field. Beautiful drive by the Chargers. They get into the end zone. OG 85 from Philly Rivers. That connection will never die. That is a timeless connection. The most from quarterback to tight end in NFL history, and they added to that in terms of touchdowns. Is OG 85 goes low, digs it out of the ground, and finds a way to stretch it across the goal line on 3rd and goal to cap off a very good opening drive for the Chargers in this game to give them a 7-0 lead. Big play by the fullback Watt with a catch out in the flat. Man, can he run? He's a little bit more athletic than I think we give him credit for. He was motoring down that sideline and barely was caught by one of the Broncos secondary members as he was tracked down right around the 3 or the 4 yard line and knocked out of bounds. Chargers able to capitalize and get into the end zone with the OG 85 Antonio Gates TD. 7-3 Chargers after that score. Melvin Ingram gets to the quarterback. The Broncos have been having a little bit of issues along the offensive line. Been struggling a little bit. Melvin Ingram beat their left tackle, right around the edge. Got to Trevor Siemian, and it was almost a little bit of a meeting of the minds, so to speak, as Bosa also got there after Melvin Ingram had hit Siemian. Ball comes out. It's recovered by Palapoy. And just like that, a threat is avoided as the Broncos were going to get points, whether it be a field goal or getting into the end zone. Great play by Ingram. And they got consistent pressure throughout this game on Siemian. Hit him a bunch. Didn't get enough sacks, but they did pressure him in this game. And that was the biggest of those pressures. A sack by Ingram, forcing the football out and recovered by the Chargers in the red zone, averting a potential scoring opportunity for the Denver Broncos in the first half. You go to the first half lights for the Denver Broncos. Opening possession field goal. You would love to have seen them get in the end zone there. It was a really good drive, good balance. Devontae Booker getting his first career NFL start with the injury to C.J. Anderson. He's going to be out for an extended period of time with the meniscus surgery. So you're going to see a lot more of Devontae Booker. He gets the start. He ran well in his football game. Did have a huge fumble. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, which was the reason why the Broncos were a little apprehensive to give him more work. Remember, his first NFL carry, a fumble versus the Carolina Panthers in the opening game of the season. So this isn't something that's unfamiliar. He fumbled at Utah quite a bit as well. So that's something in his past that he's going to have to clean up moving forward. But that being said, it was a good balanced opening drive, but it bogged down towards the end. They had to settle for a field goal. Bradley Roby with a pick six, getting into the end zone. Phillip Rivers throwing the football to Williams. It tips off of his hands and into the hands of Bradley Roby, who takes it down the sidelines and gets into the end zone for a 59-yard pick six to put the Broncos on top 10-7. Huge play in this game. That would be the first of 3 Phillip Rivers offerings that would be picked off by the Denver Broncos in this football game. None bigger than that Bradley Roby interception, because that's the only one that resulted in points for the Broncos in this game. Diving stab by Eman Sand on a great throw by Trevor Siemian under duress. He's going to get hit. Remember, I talked about the Chargers forcing the issue in this game, getting to Trevor Siemian. Siemian staring down the gun barrel, knowing he's going to take a shot, delivers the football down the field. Eman Sand with a magnificent diving stab to get the football inside the 10-yard line. But the Chargers, as I talked about before, would force the fumble and avert the opportunity for the the Broncos to get points as Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa team up to force a fumble that's recovered by Palapoy in the red zone. So even though it's a great play by Eman Sand and a great play by Trevor Siemian to deliver the football knowing you're going to take a shot, still a even better play by the Chargers to get down there and force a fumble a couple of snaps later to avoid giving up points in the red zone. You go to the first half dislikes, and we go to the Denver Broncos, or back to the Chargers in the first half. And there are a ton of missed opportunities, ton of dislikes for me with the Chargers in the first half. Missed opportunity to down the punt inside 5-yard line. They had a couple of guys down there. It was really a great effort by the initial gunner down there to try to throw the football backwards, but he stepped on the goal line as he was doing it. Actually a great opportunity to force the Denver Broncos, who had had bad field position up until that point, to try to force their way out of their own end zone. Instead, they got the football at the 20-yard line. A missed opportunity there to see if you could potentially force something, force an issue, maybe do what you did later on in the game and force a fumble of quarterback Trevor Siemian, get a sack, holding penalty in the end zone. They were struggling to protect. Any of those things would have been great, but again, not able to down that football inside the 5-yard lines. Phillip Rivers throwing the pick six. I talked about that already. Just an unfortunate set of circumstances there. A little off on the throw by Rivers, a little bit behind Williams. You would have loved to have seen him get that football down a little bit, maybe out in front of him so he could run and catch it. He had a little bit of space. There was an opening there. Phillip Rivers just a little bit behind him. I think he threw the football more along the lines of where his receiver was instead of where he was going. He tries to reach up behind him to catch it. Ball caroms off his hands into the waiting arms of Bradley Roby, who then picks it off, takes it the distance, and changes the game. The Broncos would never trail again in this football game after that pick six. Casey Hayward drops an interception. It wasn't of much consequence because on the very next snap, Melvin Ingram gets to Trevor Siemian and forces the football out along with Joey Bosa, and it's recovered by the Chargers. So even though there was an opportunity, maybe he picks that off and goes the distance. I doubt it, but the very next play, Chargers still force a turnover anyway. So really no harm, no foul there. If you are the Chargers, you still manage to come away without giving up any points in that situation because you forced the turnover on the very next snap. Josh Lambo misses a 45-yard field goal. Again, in a game where you lose, by 8, you just need all of those points. You need to put yourself in a position. Maybe if you knock that 45-yard field goal down, there is no 2-point conversion attempt. And all of a sudden now it's 24-27 because you add that field goal. You don't go for 2. And so you tack on an extra point. That's 4 points, cuts that deficit down from 19 to 28 to 24 to 27. All of a sudden now, late in the game, you only need a field goal. Remember, Chargers got all the way down there and were stopped late in the ball game. Would have been able to attempt a field goal to potentially tie the game if things would have went differently throughout the course of the game, including Josh Lambo knocking home that 45-yard field goal. Remember, when you miss opportunities like that, it changes the way you do things. Also, a missed extra point by Josh Lambo in this game as well. So you're talking about a number of different factors that really impacted the outcome of this game for the Chargers. You don't miss the extra point. You don't have to go for 2. You don't miss this field goal. You still don't go for 2 because then you're looking at a situation where a field goal ties the game. So again, number of different things that happened throughout the course of this game that impacted the decision-making moving forward. Got to make your kicks if you're Josh Lambo. Can't miss the 45-yard, especially in Mile High where the air is a lot thinner, easier for you to bang it home. Got to find a way to knock that in if you're Josh Lambo. Corey Toomer with a dropped interception. This one was less of a drop, more of a guy just not knowing where the football was. Ball literally hit him in his back. He's a linebacker. You don't expect him to make those sorts of plays anyway, so not going to really beat him up for that as much. But again, you'd like to see him just turn around. If he looks, that's a pick right before the half. No telling if the Chargers are able to get some points out of that or not. In any event, again, he's a linebacker. I don't expect much out of him. Not going to beat him up for not picking that pass off. You move on to the Denver Broncos' first half dislikes. Justin Simmons roughing the kicker. Luckily enough for him, the Chargers did not do anything with that fresh set of downs. They didn't get any points from that. But again, you don't want to give Phillip Rivers more opportunities than he already has. He's cerebral. He's dangerous. And although he threw some picks in this game, he's still Phillip Rivers. Respect that man. Don't give him more opportunities to shred your defense. Fumble by Trevor Siemian. I talked about that a couple of times already. Melvin Ingram getting to Trevor Siemian, beating the Broncos left tackle, getting to the quarterback, forcing the football out. Deciding not to punt with 17 seconds left in the second quarter. Didn't really understand this decision here. I know you want to be aggressive, and I know you trust your defense, and maybe those two things led to this decision here by Gary Kubiak to elect to forego the punt on 4th down and 6 or 5 from the San Diego Chargers 44-yard line, and instead taking a deep shot down the field. And if you complete it, great, good for you. If you don't, you're turning the football over to Phillip Rivers, who has all 3 timeouts. All they need, with 17 seconds, all they need is a first down and a half, and they're in Josh Lambo field goal range. Now, granted, he already missed, but again, why are you giving up this potential opportunity for points before the half? You just punt the football. We're going to halftime. There's no need to put your defense back out there. But again, when you have a defense as good as the Broncos, maybe you can take calculated risk like this and not have them blow up in your face. And the Denver Broncos defense simply came out, sacked Phillip Rivers. We go to halftime. So again, no harm, no foul. But again, I don't understand why you need or feel the need to put your defense in a precarious situation like that where they got to come out and get a stop and force the Chargers off the field and into the halftime break. You go back to the likes. We go to the second half now. We go back to the San Diego Chargers. And Corey Toomer with a forced fumble of Devontae Booker. Devontae Bay! Big play by Corey Toomer. I talked about him dropping the interception or really just missing an opportunity, not looking for the football on an interception in the first half. This was huge, okay? The Denver Broncos are going in for some points. This is off of a turnover by Phillip Rivers, and this is sudden change of possession. You got the defense out there unsuspectingly. They don't expect to be out there having to defend such a short field, and this is a huge play. Booker looking to extend the football over the goal line, and Corey Toomer gets to him, gets to his arms, and knocks the football back into the field of play, recovered by the Chargers. Huge play to deny. Another opportunity for the Broncos to score points denied by this Chargers defense, keeping this team in the ball game when the offense was trying to throw this game away. One-handed touchdown grab by Travis Benjamin. He's been a revelation for this Chargers team. Didn't really know what to expect when they signed him away from the Cleveland Browns in the offseason. I thought, okay, this is a guy that can return some punts for you, maybe do a little something in the returns game and give you a little something as a receiver. Didn't expect much, but he's been quite the addition at the receiver position, and I haven't seen much of an impact from him from a returns standpoint. So you're actually getting more out of him as a receiver than you are a return guy, which I didn't know if that was going to be the case when you signed him. So this has turned out to be a really big signing, and he's dealing with a little bit of an injury now, and he's been trying to gut it out, but he may end up missing some time. We'll see what happens in the severity of that injury, but this is a hell of a catch in the back of the end zone, one-handed grab, and the presence of mind to get both feet in bounds. That's just a great, phenomenal play by Travis Benjamin to help the Chargers climb within 3 at 17-14 in this game. Casey Hayward with a pick six. Just as this game was getting out of reach, Broncos had their biggest lead of the game at 24-13. Casey Hayward with a huge pick six, similar to the one that Phillip Rivers threw in this game where it caroms off of the receiver's hands. Same thing happens here. The ball caroms off of Norwood's hands into the hands of Casey Hayward. Johnny on the spot, picks it off, runs it back into the end zone, and all of a sudden the Chargers have new life in this football game. What was an 11-point lead has now been slashed to 5. And again, this is where those missed opportunities at the beginning of the game, missing a field goal, missing an extra point, Chargers feel compelled to go for 2 here instead of the 1, and they didn't get it. And because of that, had an Antonio Gates offensive pass interference called on a completed 2-point conversion that pushed them all the way back to the 17-yard line. They still go for it. They don't get it. And that's why the score ended up 24-19 at that point in the game. Melvin Gordon III is on my likes list. I remember last year this time, a lot of people, I had to beat people off with a stick that were telling me, oh, look at Melvin Gordon. He's the next bust at the running back position. He's the new Trent Richardson. Look out. He stinks. And I'm like, will you relax? The guy's a rookie. Give this man a chance to prove his worth. The Chargers offensive line was torn to shreds last season, all kinds of banged up. They had nothing out there but Phillip Rivers, and he was trying his best with no lead blocker, which he functions a lot better, as you can see, with a lead blocker in front of him. With no offensive line guys healthy for the most part, a revolving door at multiple positions on the offensive line, and just a slew of backup players out there. There was nothing to fear for the San Diego Chargers, so you could load the box up if you liked. They weren't going to hurt you. Phillip Rivers still was out there doing his thing, still had a career year throwing the football, but it wasn't conducive for running the football last year, not for Melvin Gordon. Now look at him. Over 100 yards in this game rushing, caught the football. He's dynamic out of the backfield as a pass catcher. He did it all in this football game. He gave them a chance offensively on a day where Phillip Rivers was struggling. and not on the same page with all of his receivers and threw 3 interceptions. Melvin Gordon III was a stabilizing force for this offense. Love what he brings to the table. For all of those out there that said this guy wasn't going to be any good, that said he wasn't going to be a good running back for this team and that they wasted a first-round pick and that they shouldn't have traded up for him, what are you saying now? This guy is legit. Love Melvin Gordon, love his game, love what he brings to the table. He was huge in this football game. Denver Broncos, second half likes. Darian Stewart pick. First possession of the second half, Phillip Rivers comes out, boom, throws a pick. A great play by Lorenzo Doss to bat the ball in the air. And again, another one of these balls into the air, picked off by Darian Stewart. Leads to a Devontae Booker. Devontae Bay! Touchdown. 17-7. Broncos take the lead in the second half, up by 10 at this point. Big play because it put a little distance in between them and the Chargers in this game. TJ Ward on the very next possession gets a pick. Miscommunication between Phillip Rivers and his receiver. They just weren't on the same page. Phillip Rivers expecting the receiver to break out. He breaks in. Ball goes straight to TJ Ward, and the Broncos are in business in Charger territory again. This time, though, they would not take advantage of this turnover as Devontae Booker would fumble, forced by Corey Toomer down on the 2-yard line. So Chargers able to avoid that turning into points, but that's 14 points. And I think I might have misspoke earlier, might have said the pick six was the only interception that Rivers threw that turned into points. That's the story because the second interception turned into a touchdown. 14 points off of turnovers. Hard to win in this league doing that, especially when you're playing against the caliber of opponent like the Denver Broncos on the road. Tough to get it done when you've got 14 points off of turnovers given up. Blocked, point after. That was a huge play because, again, then you start finding yourself chasing points. Instead of after that one-hand grab by Travis Benjamin, you've got a 17-14 deficit for the Chargers. Instead, now it's a 4-point deficit. Huge play by the Broncos to block that point after attempt. And then you got the Chargers later on in the game chasing points. Changes the whole dynamic of the game. Huge blocked PAT by the Denver Broncos. A huge 13-play, 75-yard drive. Jawan Thompson gets the touchdown on a fullback dive. 24-13 was the score after this touchdown. The reason this was a huge touchdown, Chargers had a little bit of momentum after the one-hand grab by Travis Benjamin. They're right back in this game. Kind of can feel the tide turning in this game a little bit. They needed to kind of get the crowd back into the game, get the Chargers back on their heels. They're starting to have a little bit of confidence. And for all of the mistakes that they've made to this point, they're only down by 4. You're feeling like this thing is kind of slipping away. Chargers got a shot, and they put together this lengthy, time-consuming drive, cap it off with a touchdown, extend the lead back out to double digits, 2-score possession now, and that was a huge turn of events to put that drive together. Great balance on that drive between pass and run, and to get in the end zone, cap it off with a touchdown, and take a 24-13 lead. It felt commanding at the time before that pick six. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And then finally, the last, one of the last likes, actually 2 more left, response after the pick six. So you throw the pick six if you're Trevor Siemian, cuts that lead down from 24-13 to 24-19 after the failed two-point conversion. And then 2 big plays. And this is how you know this kid is not lacking in confidence. After throwing a pick six, Gary Kubiak has supreme confidence in his ability to throw the football. And more importantly, Trevor Siemian has ultimate and supreme confidence in his ability to throw the football. Hits Virgil Green for a big play down the middle of the field to get that drive started. And then a couple plays later, big pass down the sidelines to DT88, Demaryius Thomas, with a great grab on the sidelines, gets both feet in. Those were some tremendous plays. A diving stab earlier by Eman San, a great catch by DT88. These are what great receivers can do for your offense. They can make plays and lift guys up. Huge play that would lead to a field goal to extend the lead back out to 8. It's still a 1-score game, but now the Chargers not only need a touchdown, but they need a 2-point conversion just to tie this ball game up. So that was a huge turn of events after the lead was trimmed to 5. And finally, last but not least, the Riley Dixon punt with 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. Chargers forced a 3-and-out as the Broncos had to start the possession at their own 1-yard line. And man, did he boom this punt or what? From literally the back end line of the end zone, Riley Dixon uncorks a 70-yard punt, flips the field position, and I didn't think McCluster did a good enough job. He should have fielded that punt initially and not allowed it to bounce, which then gave Broncos Gunners a chance to get down there and make the tackle once he did decide to pick it up. And wow, what a kick at the most crucial juncture of the football game. Riley Dixon with arguably the best special teams play of the day for the Denver Broncos as they would go on to get the stops necessary to win this football game 27-19. You go to the dislikes in the second half and go back to the Chargers. Phillip Rivers throws his second and third interceptions of the game. These things happen sometimes. It just was that kind of game for Phillip Rivers. Balls getting deflected, miscommunication with his receiver. He thinks he's going inside, or the receiver goes inside. Phillip Rivers thinks he's going outside. It's a timing route. You let it go. It's a mistake. Boom, picked off. Ball, bang, bang play. Ball gets deflected in the air. Bam, picked off. You're a little bit behind your receiver on a crossing route. Ball caroms off his fingers. Boom, pick six. Just that type of day for Phillip Rivers. Made a number of mistakes, cost his football team 14 points there. So it is what it is. Giving up the huge drive that ate up a large portion of the fourth quarter and also allowed the Broncos to extend the lead out after cutting the lead to 4 at 17-13. You allow the Broncos on that 13-play, 85-yard drive that really melted away some of the clock and also put them up 11 in this ball game. And then the two big plays, you got the Broncos backed up and you got a chance to get a stop and get the football back to Phillip Rivers after the pick six. You got the momentum and you give up a huge chunk play to Virgil Green over the middle of the field on a seam route. And then you give up the deep ball down the sidelines to Demaryius Thomas. And just like that, they're in field goal range to push the lead back up to 8. So I didn't think the defense responded the way that they needed to when they had opportunities to get the football back with a chance for the Chargers to take the lead. You go to the Broncos and their second half dislikes. Devontae Booker with the fumble at the 2-yard line. Just a careless play on his part. If you're going to stretch for the end zone, look, it's just a dive. Either you're going to dive or you're not going to dive, but don't put the football out like this and get ready to stretch it. You're either going to dive and take off or you're not, but you need to put that football away. Again, he's not treating the football like a precious jewel. You got to take care of the peel. Got to take care of the rock. And right there, he was just a little negligent. And he had to pay. Great play by Corey Tooman to force it out. Trevor Siemian interception. Again, just another one of these freakish plays. Ball bounces and caroms off of the hands of the receiver into the waiting arms of a defender who then takes that football and deposits it for 6. Bring, bring. House call for Casey Hayward. And sometimes those things happen. Big play by Hayward to get his team back in the ball game at the time. And then the rush defense. How about giving up 111 yards on the ground? I think if there's one chink in the Broncos' defensive armor, it's stopping the run. If you can run the football, if you've got a viable back and an offensive line that can create a little bit of space, you can run the football on this Denver Broncos team. They've been run on this season, okay? And you saw it again in this game. And maybe it's a little bit of DeMarcus Ware coming back. Maybe, look, Melvin Gordon did some special things, broke some tackles at the line of scrimmage, slithered through some holes that weren't very big. He did some really good things in this game, but the Broncos gave it up on the ground in this game. And there were a couple of chunk runs in there. And I think you can run on the Broncos' rush defense. I really do. If you got the line and you got the back, you can do some things on the ground against this Denver Broncos defense. But in all, Broncos find a way to get it done, and that's all that matters. They run their record to 6-2 on the season with this W. The Chargers, 2-game winning streak snapped, and they dropped to 3-5, and just like that, the magic is gone. Let's see if they can get back on their feet next week, or if they have a bye. I don't know what their schedule looks like, but a huge AFC West matchup on Sunday Night Football next week. Denver Broncos traveling out to Oakland to take on the Raiders with first place on the line. Let's get to some of your comments. Gary Schopel says, glad to see Wade Phillips is okay after that scary collision. I'm glad to see that as well. That was not something that you see very often, but that was scary. They had to put him on a stretcher. You know, Wade is up there in age too, so those types of falls, you don't recover from them as easily as, say, you know, an assistant coach who's 41 years old or 37 years old. You know, Wade's up there in age, man. Wade's got to be pushing 70 if he's not already 70. So those types of falls, very scary. Hopefully he didn't tear anything, but you hate to see those kinds of collisions on the sidelines. And, you know, hard for guys his age to get out of the way. You always would like them to be a little bit further away from the action, but you can never tell when something like that, when that action is going to come into your living room and invade your space. And, you know, he doesn't have the reflexes to get out of the way. And that was a very scary situation. Glad to know that he's okay. Gary Schopel says, what is going on with the Broncos run game? Is the O-line the problem or is something else wrong? It's partially the offensive line. This is the biggest problem you have. Like, Russell Okung struggled in this game. He was the one that gave up the sack for the forced fumble. You just got a lot of different pieces. This line, it's hard to gain the continuity that you need up front as an offensive line when you keep changing pieces every year. It just seems like this Broncos offensive line isn't the same from year to year. One year it's this guy at left tackle. The next year it's this guy at left tackle. One year you've got a guy at guard who seems like a rental who's been going from team to team in Evan Mathis. You keep changing parts. You just got to get 5 guys that are young that you feel good about, mix in a couple veterans if need be, and stick with these guys and build. That's how you get cohesiveness on your offensive line, and that's how you build a running game. That's how you protect the quarterback better, by having 5 guys that know what the guy next to him is going to do and how he's going to react to certain situations. Okay, they're running a twist and a stunt. You're going to pass this off to me this way, and then you're going to go back outside and pick up the blitzer. You understand that the guy inside's got you because you've done this enough times with him. And same thing in the run game. Okay, you know, okay, I know this guard has this double team. I've already established that the guard has this. I can get to the second level now. You know, if I'm the center and I've been working with this guard for the last 2 years, I know when he squares shoulders, he's got that guy. I don't have to stay here and help. Now I can get to the second level and go get the linebacker and open up a bigger run. But when that trust isn't there, maybe you stay there on that double team a little bit longer than you need to. Now that linebacker gets to come and fill a little bit faster. All of a sudden now, a run that might have popped for 11, 12, only goes for 2 yards. And that's the difference between having guys that aren't comfortable with one another and having a line that has synchronicity. You just don't have that in Denver right now. Craig Smith says, taking my cue from the late, great Denny Green, Mike McCoy is who we thought he was, and we let him keep his job. Mike McCoy, he's on the hot seat. I just don't see him making it out of San Diego with his job this year. He's going to finish the season. I don't see an in-season firing coming unless this thing just goes totally south. And with Phillip Rivers at the quarterback position, I don't see that happening. Bottom line is, he's not going to be your coach next year. I think there's enough heat and enough pressure on him to win, and it's not happening for him to probably not keep his job. Remember, they were literally 1 game away from him being fired. After the Oakland loss, they were like, hey, look, man, you don't win next week, you're done. And they were able to get the job done that next week and then win again the week after that. So bought him a little bit more time, but make no mistake about it, I think he's on borrowed time right now. Jim Hoover says, Denver's O-line handle Mack and Irvin next week. It could be scary. They might have to chip. I don't know. Irvin doesn't scare me as much as Mack does. Mack is starting to, I think, come into his own. He had a really good game, 2 sacks and a bunch of pressures versus Tampa and their left tackle, Donovan Smith. So I wouldn't feel good about Russell Okung blocking him one-on-one because Okung struggled with Melvin Ingram. And if he struggled with Ingram, I think he's going to struggle with Mack. So that might be a situation where you may need to keep a tight end to chip, a back end to chip, just to make sure that you're not allowing your quarterback to get smashed from the blind side like he did last game and fumble the football. That could be a little bit of a dicey situation there. Captain Spartan 04 says, why do teams with great defenses have bad offensive lines Seattle, Minnesota, Denver. Back when my Steelers D was good, we had a battle line. It's because of all the resources that you spend to get that good defense. Look, you don't just get a good defense overnight. At least not in most teams' cases. In Denver, they went out and bought a defense. Okay, they went out and bought and spent money on DeMarcus Ware, on TJ Ward, and all those guys, Aqib Talib. But they also spent picks on homegrown talent like Von Miller, Chris Harris Jr. And when you do those types of things, Bradley Roby, you're not paying as much attention to areas like your offensive line. And also keep in mind, when you do spend picks on your offensive line, you hope that those guys pan out. But it just seems like teams with good defenses don't have the same luck on offense. Denver spent a second-round pick on an offensive tackle, Ty Sombrilo. He just hasn't panned out for them well, hasn't been able to stay healthy. And so sometimes you're going to miss. And it just seems like with these, same thing in Minnesota. They spent resources. Guys got injured. It just sucks. But that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I mean, even in Seattle, theirs is more the case of arrogance. And them just saying, we got Tom Cable guy. He can fix our offensive line. We can throw him defensive players and he'll turn them into offensive linemen like he did with J.R. Sweezy. And so they got arrogant and it backfired. And then they realized, look, we got to start divulging some resources. So they spent the first round pick on offensive linemen this year and they had to throw him inside at guard, in Jermaine Ifedi. But it takes time. And when you spend as many resources as those teams spend on their defense, it's hard to spend the same amount of time, attention, and resources into your offensive line. You got to cut your losses somewhere. You got to cut corners somewhere. And a lot of times you find that it's on the offensive line with these teams, it just seems like it's a little coincidental, but it's crazy that you bring that up because it's a really valid point. All right, let's see. Captain Spartan 04 says, Alshon with his first touchdown. I'm not watching the game, but that's not good because at halftime, it was already 13-3. So if he's scoring a touchdown, that's not looking good. I can't wait to get back in front of my television and see what's going on there. Craig Smith says, what logical explanation is there for not giving the NFL leader in touchdown 2 to 3 chances from the 2? Hell, at least you'll use him as a decoy in play action. I don't understand. Don't ask me. I was saying the same thing. You get down there at the 2-yard line and Melvin Gordon, who scored as a pass catcher, who scored as a running back, who has scored in as many ways as you could imagine this season, doesn't get a touch. Don't ask me. But you throw it to him on the 2-point conversion later on in the game, though. I mean, earlier in the game, you throw it to him on the 2-point conversion. I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know. Captain Spartan 04 says, us fans never relax. Some Steelers fans ready to call for Gerald Hawkins and said Quell Ghost in a bus. They both haven't played a preseason snap, LOL. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, man. When you spend a pick on a guy and you have to wait for him like the Ravens did with their wide receiver, it just, after a while, you get antsy and you start looking around the league and seeing other rookies and other second-year players that were in the same draft class as the guy you drafted, and they're making plays, and you're saying, damn, we still haven't even seen our guy. Maybe our guy stinks. And so, fans are like that. You know how fans are. You know exactly how it goes. Captain Spartan 04 says, Drew Kazar versus Riley Dixon, punter rivalry in the future. Both only punters selected in this past year's draft. I'm tell you what, Kazar has gotten off to a really shaky start. Remember, he had the drop snap in Oakland, and he's had some shank jobs at some critical junctures of games. Meanwhile, Riley Dixon kicked the hell out of the football late in that ball game, really flipped the field position. That was a key play in that game. Brown Shoe T2 says, Bears are pretending to actually be football players this Halloween. But they're doing a hell of a job of dressing up and kicking the Vikings' ass right now. So we'll see if that holds up or not. Brian Moss says, kind of worried about teams being able to run on the Broncos. I'd rather have them pass on us than have the ball pushed down our throats. I'll tell you what, man, I'm starting to become concerned. I passed it off as just a coincidence earlier in the season. It's starting to become a trend. That's not something that is very comfortable for any fan because, again, even though points come through the passing game, you'd much rather, especially with your secondary and how good they are, you'd much rather have teams have to throw it on you than run it. Right now, I think with all the losses from last year's defense, you're starting to feel it up front. guys aren't as stout, aren't as good at penetrating and making plays against the run. You're starting to see that with this Broncos defense. Craig Smith says officiating was horrible. Since when is holding in the end zone not called as safety? Broncos couldn't handle Bosa, held him all game. Yeah, the official picked the flag up and threw it down at the 1 yard line. I watched him do that, and I'm like, did that not happen in the end zone? I wasn't sure. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it happened early on, but in any event, yeah, Bosa's a beast. And it's funny because, like I just mentioned with Melvin Gordon, I recall a lot of people calling Bosa a bust and saying he wasn't going to work in San Diego, which I thought was a farce and a whole bunch of nonsense. And so, yeah, man, I don't know what happened on that particular play, but I did see the official take the flag out of the end zone and toss it down at the 1 yard line. Again, I don't know what happened there. And I was waiting for a replay. I never got it. So I didn't really see if it occurred in the end zone or not. But yeah, tough break for the Chargers. Just made too many mistakes in this game to win. You can't make those types of mistakes on the road and expect to beat a team like the Denver Broncos again. Broncos get it done, run their record to 6-2. Huge showdown on Sunday Night Football with the Oakland Raiders coming up in week number 9 on Sunday Night Football. Meanwhile, the Chargers drop to 3-5. It's not over. Still a lot of football left to be played, a lot of space and distance between them and teams in the wild card and in that division. They have time to make that space up, but they got to win, and they got to win now. Probably not going to happen, but with Phillip Rivers, like I say all the time, with number 17 as your quarterback in the backfield, you got a shot. So I'm not counting the Chargers out just yet. In any event, it's going to do it for Chargers at Broncos. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on Lockdown Coverage. Come back and join your man Louie Tee for Monday Night Football overtime at the conclusion of Vikings at Bears. I will see you then. Remember, we're changing the game one live feed at a time. I will see you a little bit later on. Have a good one.